This is CBC Edmonton News.
Good evening. Thanks for staying up with us tonight. I'm Lindsay Warner. Well, the Oilers are pushing the Kings to the brink of elimination, keeping the lead for the entirety of Game 5 tonight.
Darnell Nurse to Evander Kane moving up.
Evander Kane opened up the scoring into the first period with a snapshot assisted by Nurse. Then Draisaitl flies through the air, sinks the second goal with a wrist shot assisted by McDavid. LA scores. Kulak, well, he gets the third goal for the Oil with a snapshot, taking advantage of Byfield not paying attention. Byfield not paying attention. Bugstad with a great deflection tip in front. Time for the Kings to change goalies to Phoenix Copley. It won't matter. Bushbaum hits. Zach Hyman deflects off his face for a goal. He's okay and is back in the ice without a scratch. And then Hyman again drives hard into the net. Bugstad's pass goes in off LA defender before the net is dislodged. Good goal. 6-3 was the final score. Play La Bamba, baby. Oilers up 3-2 in the series. Skinner back with a solid performance after a shaky Game 4. Game 6 is on Saturday, back in LA. And it's a win for Calgary today, too, despite not making the playoffs. There's another deal to build a new arena. The mayor, premier, as well as representatives from the Calgary Flames were on hand for an announcement on it this afternoon. This replaces an earlier deal that collapsed in December 2021 when the Flames walked away citing rising costs. Tom Ross has that story.
Mayor Jyoti Gondek says the deal is worth over $1.2 billion, involving more than just a new arena for the Calgary Flames.
This is a generational investment in placemaking, creating space for community to gather. This entertainment hub will feature a new event center and a community arena, along with critical infrastructure required to support growth and development.
The province is pitching in as well. Premier Danielle Smith says up to $300 million will also be added in to help with infrastructure in the surrounding area. But there's one more hurdle first.
After the election, the province's contribution to this arena deal must be approved by provincial cabinet and the Treasury Board before the end of summer. That's why on May 29th, I'm hoping Calgarians give our UCP government a clear mandate to proceed with this arena deal.
Calgary Flames President and CEO John Bean is excited. He says it will bring lots of new events to the city, as well as a couple of things held back from the aging Saddle Dome.
We actually talked to Commissioner Gary Bettman today, and he too is excited to hear the news. And he said we're now going to be in a rotation for the NHL draft and the NHL All-Star game.
Gondek says they are in a much better position this time and is confident the deal will stand the test of time.
This time, we have laid out everything that needs to be done to ensure that this is a community building process and that the project itself is bigger than one facility.
However, it is still too early to say when finalized design plans will come out and when shovels can finally get in the ground. Tom Ross, CBC News, Calgary.
The mayor of our city says he's happy for Calgary, but is asking for equal support from the province, especially after they did not provide funding for our arena.
Now that Calgary is getting $330 million, which we are very happy that Calgary is getting, we would like to see the similar type of support given to Edmonton so we can upgrade our own facilities like Commonwealth Stadium. We need to build a soccer facility. We need to build cricket facilities. We need to build public infrastructure that will facilitate arts and entertainment in Edmonton. So we have needs, and we would love to work with the provincial government to ensure that Edmonton is getting the attention that we need.
Dozens of flight attendants from different airlines rallied outside the Calgary International Airport terminal earlier today. An information picket was held in 4 cities today without any disruptions to our operations or flights. And as Colleen Underwood reports, staff say they're fed up with only getting paid when the plane is moving.
Anyone leaving the departure level at Calgary's airport today was met by more than 50 flight attendants wearing red T-shirts, chanting and waving signs. They say most people don't realize flight attendants are only paid from the time the plane pushes off till the time it lands and the doors open. They're not paid to help people board or exit the plane between flights or during delays. Part-time flight attendant Brandy Whitney says she tries not to think about all the time she has volunteered during her career.
I think that would make me sad. Yeah. You know what? It's typically about 35 hours a month. So it's significant. Yeah, it's significant.
Alia Hussein is the president of the local QP union that represents the WestJet cabin crew. She says raising awareness is just the first step.
We'll say what we've been saying all along. It's an archaic practice and it needs to be addressed because it hasn't kept up with the 21st century.
In emails to CBC News, WestJet and Air Canada say they are abiding by a negotiated collective agreement bargained with their staff. Colleen Underwood, CBC News, Calgary.
And 1 week since tens of thousands of federal public workers began striking, the union making good on ramping up picket lines in strategic locations today. Hundreds marched between Gatineau and Ottawa, disrupting traffic for a while. About 100,000 workers across the country are off the job. More than 50,000 have been deemed essential and are still working. Several government services have been impacted by the strike, including tax returns. So there are growing calls for Sunday's tax deadline to be extended. Key issues for the union are higher wages, remote work, and job security. Also from Ottawa today, how should the government move forward on gun control? Earlier this year, the Liberals introduced legislation changes to ban certain models, but backtracked after criticism from firearms owners. Marina van Stackelberg has more on the next steps to improve the bill.
Bill C-21, Mr. Chair, is the strongest gun reform legislation this country has seen in a generation.
Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino making his case once again for his gun control law at a House of Commons committee. The legislation would put a national freeze on handguns and raise maximum sentences for gun traffickers.
We're committed to getting this right and getting this legislation passed for all Canadians.
The Liberals withdrew amendments in February. They were criticized for not properly consulting with gun owners and publishing a list of prohibited firearms that included a number of long guns widely used by hunters.
Minister, it's been a while that we've been waiting for you to come to this committee for these consultations.
The Conservatives accuse the Liberals of virtue signaling.
Bans don't seem to be working, Minister. How do you think this new so-called ban on so-called assault-style firearms is going to be any different?
Calling a national ban on assault-style firearms virtue signaling completely misses the mark and is disrespectful to every Canadian who has lost a loved one as a result of those firearms.
What is disrespectful to Canadians is putting forward divisive political policies that are only designed to help the Liberal Party win elections, instead of policies that will actually combat violent crime in our communities.
The NDP support the handgun ban but want amendments to target the makers of guns. Leader Jagmeet Singh says that way they can't use loopholes to get around gun bans.
It's going to go after the manufacturers that continue to change model numbers and change minor definitions of their weapons to get around and to skirt laws.
That's an amendment the Public Safety Minister says he is open to.
Suspended.
Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
More sheriffs are headed to Alberta streets to combat the ongoing rise in crime. They'll specifically target reoffending criminals. The province is taking $2 million from this year's budget to put 20 more sheriffs on the ground. It's through a program called the Fugitive Apprehension Sheriff's Support Team. These sheriffs will focus on arresting people already wanted on outstanding warrants. The UCP says they'll be in operation by next spring. Edmonton is taking bold steps towards a sustainable future and is planning to build a hydrogen fueling station. The announcement came today at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention happening in our city this week. The station will supply fuel for the city's hydrogen transit buses, which will be running this summer. It has put out a request for proposals and will announce the successful candidate in the fall. Mayor Sohi says this is a thrilling time to be part of the hydrogen, an $11 trillion industry worldwide.
We are taking these actions because addressing climate change and making the energy transition are top priorities for City Council and our administration. And we're focusing on transportation because it is the most impactful way to reduce our current carbon emissions.
The first hydrogen bus is scheduled this summer. Technology is changing a lot of our transportation fuels and formats. Another example, the agriculture drone schools that are taking off throughout Western Canada. Luke Ettinger shows us how farmers are hoping the tech can help with calving season and climate change.
Farmers are landing new skills at a drone training workshop in Grand Prairie. Landview Drones is holding courses throughout Western Canada to show farmers how to seed, fertilize, as well as use imaging technology to monitor herd and crop health.
You don't necessarily want to be driving around in a pasture all the time on an ATV and disturbing cattle while they're trying to calve.
The Fairview rancher says the heat maps make spotting cattle having a hard time calving easier at night. Len said the bird's eye view of his 200-head cattle operation will also mean less wear and tear on farm equipment.
You put the cattle out there in the wildest landscape, and they'll convert that land into food for us. So being able to fly a drone through that kind of terrain is extremely beneficial.
He also hopes to use drones to spot toxic weeds. But he will have to apply his pesticides the old-fashioned way. Health Canada has yet to approve the application of agricultural pesticides by a drone. Course instructor Marcus Weber hopes to see drone regulations catch up with the United States and parts of Asia.
The main reason most of the farmers are interested in them is because they're fast and because they're affordable. They're an extremely economical tool and ultimately will let us apply less chemical than we are now.
Jeremy Farmer with Roddy Creek Ranch near Quesnel, BC, hopes drones can help him add a second crop to his cornfields. The practice is called cover cropping, which can protect soil from wind and water erosion.
So once it's this high, or depending what height, we're going to try different heights. If you go in there with a machine, you'll knock all your corn down.
There's also hope drones can cut costs and reduce manual labor.
It kind of takes a lot of the hard work out of some of those things that beat you up over time.
Lentz is planning to stay in the heat of his truck with his father next winter, while still checking in on their cattle in the cold.
Taking off.
Luke Ettinger, CBC News, Grand Prairie.
Those winds gusting near 60 this evening finally have died down. We're quite cool though, only 1 degree, just hovering above freezing. And we're actually not out of the clear yet for those showers. We will wake up to overcast skies and 8 degrees at 9 a.m. Stay with us, more news is to come. Three new medical schools are opening in Canada in the next 2 years. Their goal is to encourage more students to enter family medicine to help address shortages across the country. But as CBC's Karen Pauls reports, there are concerns that adding students to the mix will just add to the demands on doctors' time.
This is the site of the new medical school at the University of Prince Edward Island. It's under construction now, but in 2025, 20 new students will start learning here.
Our students will be trained in a kind of inclusive environment with working with nurse practitioners, nurses. We'll have an on-site clinic here that is what's called a medical home, which is an interdisciplinary program that will have patients from the university community, but also the broader community, and students will learn in that environment.
This is just one of the 3 new medical schools being built in Canada in the next few years. The other 2 are at Toronto Metropolitan and Simon Fraser universities. And they're being built on a new model of education where students will train in the communities where they'll serve after they graduate.
The Brampton area and the Peel region are a very diverse and fast-growing region here. Doctors trained at this medical school will be prepared to work with diverse and underserved communities, allowing them to provide healthcare that is culturally respectful because of the nature of the region.
But there's a concern that there aren't even enough doctors to see patients, never mind taking on the extra responsibility of teaching.
My worries start when I try to figure out how do we bring this number of trainees into a system which is frankly, we're just scrambling to keep the lights on every day, right? And we don't have enough doctors to do the clinical work that we need to do. And having been in academia my whole life, I know that when you bring learners in, I don't see as many patients at all.
The hope is that medical students and residents will take the pressure off their supervising physicians because they'll get more hands-on experience earlier in their training.
And we know from a patient care perspective that physicians who are involved in education are both challenged to stay up to date so they can teach and challenged by their learners, even very junior learners. So the quality of care increases for patients who are seen. If you're teaching, the learners will go see patients and your time comes out in the wash as far as patient care goes. So I don't think it's going to negatively impact the number of patients seen.
The ultimate goal is to retain existing family doctors while training new ones. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Charlottetown.
If you regularly drive into the city from the south, you may have noticed a new addition to the sign welcome you into Edmonton. It's a saying made popular in last year's playoff run. Play La Bamba, baby, popped up after the Oilers win against the Kings on Sunday. La Bamba was, of course, the favorite song of the late Joey Moss. It was also the anthem of last year's playoff run because of superfan Ben Stelter. Well, it turns out this sign has quite the backstory. It was created by an Edmontonian who placed it in the same place last year, but when the Oilers lost to Colorado in the Western Conference Finals, it disappeared. Alex Lacusta says it was a welcome surprise to see it reappear.
Seeing it kind of embraced really means a lot to me. Initially, I had hoped to collect the sign back after the Western Conference Finals last year, and donate it to, the Ben Stelter Fund or use it in some sort of charity endeavor. So maybe that happens now. I'm not entirely sure.
The city says it doesn't know who put the sign up this year, and they are, quote, working through priority work, so it may not be removed until after the playoffs are complete. They also hope the Edmonton Oilers will be able to play La Bamba many more times during their playoff run. British Columbia's multi-billion-dollar wine industry could take a hit this year. Vineyards are dealing with a serious damage from harsh cold snaps. As Brady Strachan report shows us, that's bad news for winemakers and the thriving tourism industry that relies on them.
Okay, so we can cut this bud. That's how we check the damage.
South Okanagan grape grower Balwinder Dhaliwal doesn't like what he's seeing. These tiny buds on his vines are what will turn into this year's grape crop.
And if we can go a little bit more deeper, yeah, they're brown and black. So that means that this is done.
Extreme cold last December froze the delicate buds solid. The damage is unlike anything he's seen in his 30 years of growing grapes.
Every single variety is damaged. So we'll lose at least 50 to 70%.
These vines here in Oliver were damaged in the cold snap. This field here is just one of 600 acres of Dhaliwal's vineyards that sustained damage over the winter. Crop loss is projected right across the Okanagan Valley, where the vast majority of BC's wine grapes are grown. The BC wine industry is estimating a 50% drop in grape production this year. The winter damage is the latest in a string of extreme weather events to hit the region, everything from excessive heat and wildfire smoke to flooding and extreme cold.
So this is all combining to having an effect on our grape production. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we've slowly seen a decrease up to 30% in what we should be getting off of what we know is planted. So we attribute it to climate change.
We're beholden to Mother Nature.
A reduced harvest will impact winemakers like David Patterson. For a region so dependent on tourism, he's worried about a ripple effect if there's less wine to go around.
Tasting rooms not being able to open because they just don't have the wine. Well, if the tasting room's not open, that's not going to drive tourism. It's going to be a negative effect on tourism.
It's just a dry wood, right?
Back in Oliver, Balwinder Dhaliwal is cutting his losses, literally chopping down this block of Roussanne vines that were significantly damaged.
This variety is toast, it's done. And then we just cut it off and we can put in the new variety.
He says responding to the changing climate is the only way forward. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Oliver, British Columbia.
The weather is brought to you by YEG Home Comfort. For efficient heating and cooling, call on YEG Home Comfort or visit yeghomecomfort.ca.
Rain tomorrow. Just scattered showers, not a full deluge tomorrow. Lots of cloud over the next week, but those temperatures are going to rebound nicely. And by the weekend, look at that. 23 degrees on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Possibility of some showers, but for the most part, nice, beautiful spring week. And a team won't be hoisting the Stanley Cup for a while yet, but a man in our city has his own to lift. Terry Callback and his massive replica Stanley Cup paid the CBC studio a visit. The cup measures around 6 feet tall and is more than 70 pounds. It's made out of things, a mixture of things, including a 45-gallon drum, plywood, an angel food cake pan, and a bowl. It's likely comes as no surprise. It was a labor of love.
I think in a couple-hour project, it turned into a day and a half, but it was tricky to find the tiers to go up when we to try. We thought buckets at first, but couldn't find the right size buckets, so we were wandering around Canadian Tire looking for things that would work, and then we found the landscaping plastic, so then we could make any size that we wanted to.
Callback plans on taking his version of the Stanley Cup to city streets. He took those there tonight, and he must have been a good luck charm for us. People must have had a blast with that. Is that cup still out there? I heard all of you crazy people honking down Jasper Avenue. Oilers win, heading to Game 6 Saturday back in LA. Have a great night.